Good evening, good evening. Welcome to day 19 of the 24 days of Christmas. Thanks to my stepmom for texting me and letting me know that it was 7 o'clock because I'm running a little bit behind tonight. We had a Christmas holiday party at work at the end of the day today, which ran a little longer than I'm usually at work. And so it took me a little longer to eat dinner and get all squared away when I got home, and then totally lost track of time because I thought I had an extra 30 minutes, and apparently I did not. So welcome to tonight's stream. Thank you, Cindy, for texting me and telling me that you guys were waiting, because it would have been another probably 20 minutes before I was like, I should probably get my stream going. So good on that. If you don't know, my name is Rob Sogomonian. I'm a voice actor. I've been reading about 20 minutes to 30 minutes of an audiobook, Christmas story audiobook, every night for the past 19 days leading up to Christmas. We've got 5 days left, including tonight. We started with A Christmas Carol. We read The Gift of the Magi. I did a little bit of an audiobook production demonstration, and now we're in The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, which is probably my favorite Christmas story of all time at this point. I really love this story. And on the 24th, we're going to be doing The Night Before Christmas. So we've got some stuff in the works for that. But tonight, we're going to get into this. If you have not seen any of the previous ones, or you want to catch up, or just rewatch any of them, if you want to go back and rewatch A Christmas Carol or The Gift of the Magi, you can always go here. There's a YouTube playlist. It's got all the previous episodes in there, and they're just categorized or organized by date, so you can go back to the first day or all the way up to today, the 19th, and then through the 24th once we're done with this series, if you want to rewatch anything between Christmas and New Year's. As I'm narrating, you will see the book up. These are all royalty-free, or I should say these are all public domain books, so I'm not infringing on anyone's copyrights by doing this. These are all older books, which is good. I don't want to be getting me or anybody else in trouble by doing this. But yeah, so you'll get to read along if that's something that you like to do. I know a lot of people like to actually read the book while they're listening to an audiobook version of it. If you want to buy me a coffee, I'll be popping these QR codes up every so often. One goes directly to my Venmo. One goes to a website called Coffee, which is purpose-built for buying people coffee. Either one works. If you've already got a Venmo, just throw me $5 or whatever. It does help with some of the production costs. There's not many production costs, but it's nice to know that people appreciate what you're doing and are willing to pay for it. So, in any case, let's go ahead and dive into tonight's episode of the 24 Days of Christmas, day 19 or evening 19, and we are going to be getting into Santa Claus, which is, I think, where he gets his name. So, let's talk about that. Chapter 9. Santa Claus. Claus thought that none of the children would ever know where the toys came from which they found by their bedsides when they wakened the following morning. But kindly deeds are sure to bring fame, and fame has many wings to carry its tiding into far lands. So for miles and miles in every direction, people were talking of Claus and his wonderful gifts to children. The sweet generousness of his work caused a few selfish folks to sneer, but even these were forced to admit their respect for a man so gentle-natured that he loved to devote his life to pleasing the helpless little ones of his race. Therefore, the inhabitants of every city and village had been eagerly watching the coming of Claus, and remarkable stories of his beautiful playthings were told the children to keep them patient and contented. When on the morning following the first trip of Claus with his deer, the little ones came running to their parents with their pretty toys they had found, and asked from whence they came, there was but one reply to the question. "The good Claus must have been here, my darlings, for his are the only toys in all the world." "But how did he get in?" asked the children. At this, the fathers shook their heads, being themselves unable to understand how Claus had gained admittance to their homes, but the mothers, watching the glad faces of their dear ones, whispered that the good Claus was no mortal man, but assuredly a saint, and they piously blessed his name for the happiness he had bestowed upon their children. "A saint," said one, with bowed head, "has no need to unlock doors if it pleases him to enter our homes." And afterward, when a child was naughty or disobedient, its mother would say, You must pray to the good Santa Claus for forgiveness. He does not like naughty children, and unless you repent, he will bring you no more pretty toys." But Santa Claus himself would not have approved this speech. He brought toys to the children because they were little and helpless, and because he loved them. He knew that the best of children were sometimes naughty, and that the naughty ones were often good. It is the way with children the world over, and he would not have changed their natures had he possessed the power to do so. And that is how our Claus became Santa Claus. It is possible for any man by good deeds to enshrine himself as a saint in the hearts of the people. Chapter 10. Christmas Eve. The day that broke as Claus returned from his night ride with Glossie and Flossie brought him a new trouble. Will Nook, the chief guardian of the deer, came to him, surly and ill-tempered, to complain that he had kept Glossie and Flossie beyond daybreak, in opposition to his orders. "Yet it could not have been very long after daybreak," said Claus. "It was 1 minute after," answered Will Nook, "and that is as bad as 1 hour. I shall set the stinging gnats on Glossie and Flossie, and they will thus suffer terribly for their disobedience." "Don't do that," begged Claus. "It was my fault." But Will Nook would listen to no excuses, and went away grumbling and growling in his ill-natured way. For this reason, Claus entered the forest to consult Necile about rescuing the good deer from punishment. To his delight, he found his old friend, the Master Woodsman, seated in the circle of nymphs. Ock listened to the story of the night journey to the children, and of the great assistance the deer had been to Claus by drawing his sledge over the frozen snow. "I do not wish my friends to be punished if—" Oh, wrong one. "I do not wish my friends to be punished if I can save them," said the toy maker, when he had finished the relation. "They were only 1 minute late, and they ran swifter than a bird flies to get home before daybreak." Ox stroked his beard thoughtfully a moment, and then sent for the Prince of the Nooks, who rules all his people in Burzee, and also for the Queen of the Fairies and the Prince of the Ryls. When all had assembled, Claus told his story again at Ock's command, and then the master addressed the Prince of the Nooks, saying, "The good work that Claus is doing amongst mankind deserves the support of every honest immortal. Already he is called a saint in some of the towns, and before long the name of Santa Claus will be lovingly known in every home that is blessed with children. Moreover, he is a son of our forest, so we owe him our encouragement. You, ruler of the Nooks, have known him these many years. Am I not right in saying he deserves our friendship?" The prince, crooked and sour of visage as all Nooks are, looked only upon the dead leaves at his feet, and muttered, "You are the Master Woodsman of the world." Ox smiled, but continued, in soft tones, "It seems that the deer which are guarded by your people can be of great assistance to Claus, and as they seem willing to draw his sledge, I beg that you will permit him to use their services whenever he pleases." The prince did not reply, but tapped the curled point of his sandal with the tip of his spear, as if in thought. Then the Fairy Queen spoke to him in this way. "If you consent to Ock's request, I will see that no harm comes to your deer while they are away from the forest." And the Prince of the Ryls added, "For my part, I will allow to every deer that assists Claus the privilege of eating my casa plants, which give strength, and my grawl plants, which give fleetness of foot, and my marbin plants, which give long life." And the Queen of the Nymphs said, "The deer which draw the sledge of Claus will be permitted to bathe in the forest pools of Naris, which will give them sleek coats and wonderful beauty." The Prince of the Nooks, hearing these promises, shifted uneasily on his seat, for in his heart he hated to refuse a request of his fellow immortals, although they were asking an unusual favor at his hands, and the Nooks are unaccustomed to granting favors of any kind. Finally, he turned to his servants and said, "Call Will Nook." When surly Will came and heard the demands of the immortals, he protested loudly against granting them. "Deer are deer," said he, "and nothing but deer. Were they horses, it would be right to harness them like horses. But no one harnesses deer because they are free, wild creatures, owing no service of any sort to mankind. It would degrade my deer to labor for Claus, who is only a man in spite of the friendship lavished on him by the immortals." "You have heard," said the prince to Ak. Oops. "You have heard," said the prince to Ak. "There is truth in what Will says." "Call Glossie and Flossie," returned the master. The deer were brought to the conference, and Ak asked them if they objected to drawing the sledge for Claus. "No, indeed," replied Glossie. "We enjoyed the trip very much." "And we tried to get home by daybreak," added Flossie, "but were unfortunately a minute too late." "A minute lost at daybreak doesn't matter," said Ak. "You are forgiven for that delay." "Provided it does not happen again," said the Prince of the Knooks sternly. "And will you permit them to make another journey with me?" asked Claus eagerly. The prince reflected while he gazed at Will, who was scowling, and at the Master Woodsman, who was smiling. Then he stood up and addressed the company as follows. "Since you all urge me to grant the favor, I will permit the deer to go with Claus once every year, on Christmas Eve, provided they always return to the forest by daybreak. He may select any number he pleases, up to 10, to draw his sledge, and those shall be known among us as reindeer, to distinguish them from the others. And they shall bathe in the pools of Nares, and eat the casa and rall and marben plants, and shall be under the especial protection of the Fairy Queen. And now cease scowling, Will Nook, for my words shall be obeyed." He hobbled quickly away through the trees to avoid the thanks of Claus and the approval of the other immortals, and Will, looking as cross as ever, followed him. But Ak was satisfied, knowing that he could rely on the promise of the prince, however grudgingly given, and Glossie and Flossie ran home, kicking up their heels delightedly at every step. "When is Christmas Eve?" Claus asked the master. "In about 10 days, he replied. Then I cannot use the deer this year," said Claus thoughtfully, "for I shall not have time enough to make my sack full of toys." "The shrewd prince foresaw that," responded Ak, "and therefore named Christmas Eve as the day you might use the deer, knowing it would cause you to lose an entire year." "If I only had the toys the Aguas stole from me," said Claus sadly, "I could easily fill my sack for the children." "Where are they?" asked the master. "I do not know," replied Claus, "but the wicked Aguas probably hid them in the mountains." Ak turned to the Fairy Queen. "Can you find them?" he asked. "I will try," she replied brightly. Then Claus went back to the Laughing Valley to work as hard as he could, and a band of fairies immediately flew to the mountain that had been haunted by the Aguas and began to search for the stolen toys. The fairies, as we well know, possess wonderful powers, but the cunning Aguas had hidden the toys in a deep cave and covered the opening with rocks so no one could look in. Therefore, all search for the missing playthings proved in vain for several days, and Claus, who sat at home waiting for news from the fairies, almost despaired of getting toys before Christmas Eve. He worked hard, every moment, but it took considerable time to carve out and to shape each toy, and to paint it properly, so that on the morning before Christmas Eve, only half of one small shelf above the window was filled with playthings ready for the children. But on this morning, the fairies who were searching in the mountains had a new thought. They joined hands and moved in a straight line through the rocks that formed the mountain, beginning at the topmost peak and working downward, so that no spot could be missed by their bright eyes. And at last they discovered the cave where the toys had been heaped up by the wicked Aguas. It did not take them long to burst open the mouth of the cave, and then each one seized as many toys as he could carry, and they all flew to Claus and laid the treasure before him. The good man was rejoiced to receive, just in the nick of time, such a store of playthings with which to load his sledge, and he sent word to Glossie and Flossie to be ready for the journey at nightfall. With all his other labors, he had managed to find time, since last trip, to repair the harness and to strengthen his sledge so that when the deer came to him at twilight, he had no difficulty harnessing them. "We must go in another direction tonight," he told them, "where we shall find children I have never yet visited, and we must travel fast and work quickly, for my sack is full of toys and running over the brim." So just as soon as moon rose, they dashed out of the Laughing Valley and across the plain and over the hills to the south. The air was sharp and frosty, and the starlight touched the snowflakes and made them glitter like countless diamonds. The reindeer leaped onward with strong, steady bounds, and Klaus's heart was so light and merry that he laughed and sang while the wind whistled past his ears, "With a ho, 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 and a ha, 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 and a ho, ho, ha, ha, hee. Now away we go o'er the frozen snow, as merry as we can be." Jack Frost heard him, and came racing up with his nippers, but when he saw it was Klaus, he laughed and turned away again. The mother owls heard him as he passed near a wood, and stuck their heads out of the hollow places in the tree trunks, but when they saw who it was, they whispered to the owlets nestling near them that it was only Santa Claus carrying toys to the children. It is strange how much those mother owls know. Klaus stopped at some of the scattered farmhouses and climbed down the chimneys to leave presents for the babies. Soon after he reached a village and worked merrily for an hour distributing playthings amongst the sleeping little ones. Then away again he went, singing his joyous carol. "Now away we go o'er the gleaming snow, while the deer run swift and free. For to girls and boys we carry the toys that will fill their hearts with glee." The deer liked the sound of his deep bass voice and kept time to the song with their hoofbeats on the hard snow. But soon they stopped at another chimney, and Santa Claus, with sparkling eyes and face brushed red by the wind, climbed down its smoky sides and left a present for every child the house contained. It was a merry, happy night. Swiftly the deer ran, and busily their driver worked to scatter his gifts among the sleeping children. But the sack was empty at last, and the sledge headed homeward, and now again the race with the daybreak had begun. Glossie and Flossie had no mind to be rebuked a second time for tardiness, so they fled with a swiftness that enabled them to pass the gale on which the Frost King rode, and soon brought them to the Laughing Valley. It is true, when Klaus released his steeds from their harness, the eastern sky was streaked with gray, but Glossie and Flossie were deep in the forest before day fairly broke. Klaus was so wearied with his night's work that he threw himself upon his bed and fell into a deep slumber, and while he slept, the Christmas sun appeared in the sky and shone upon hundreds of happy homes where the sound of childish laughter proclaimed that Santa Claus had made them a visit. God bless him. It was his first Christmas Eve, and for hundreds of years since then, he has nobly fulfilled his mission to bring happiness to the hearts of little children. And that's where we're going to call it a night tonight. Tomorrow night, we're going to be talking about Chapter 11, how the first stockings were hung by the chimneys. I love how this story kind of builds and builds and builds. It's a very well-written story, which should be no surprise since it's written by the author of The Wizard of Oz. I love this story. It's so good. So lighthearted and just full of hope. So once again, if you want to catch up on any of the previous episodes of the 24 Days of Christmas, tonight's day 19 or tonight's night 19, but you can catch all of the other ones, all of the old episodes here. The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus, we've got The Gift of the Magi, we've got A Christmas Carol. All of those are recorded and ready for you to listen to. And then join me again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock. And tomorrow night I will be on time for Chapter 11 of The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. Hope you all have a great evening. Happy Friday, happy holidays, whatever you celebrate. And we'll see you tomorrow night for another episode of the 24 Days of Christmas. Good night, everybody.